This is now the Whirligig Hatred podcast.
Yeah, we've been sitting here talking about the, first wave was the attack of the pollen. But the pollen was just more like popping flares and smoke. Now we straight up have an assault coming from the whirligigs, which you have looked up the fact that that was from a red maple?
Red maple.
Yeah, so Stu and I have now decided that we're going to post this recording, go around and take out all the red maple bases. We cannot have these things attacking.
I decided none of this.
It is my favorite kind of food.
I decided none of this. It was you and what happened to you on the way over here.
It's just they're stuck in everything, like in my gutters. Like I was going to relax this weekend, and here we are now. I've just got these little, looks like throwing stars stuck all up in my grill. So we'll take care of that. Anyways, welcome to Uber Cube, the place we discuss all things cube, but with refreshments. This is your host, Anthony Adams, a.k.a. Uber Bear / Whirligig Hater. And today we are joined by the lovely... I'll let you guys
Hi,
pick.
it's me.
There we go.
Somebody who actually has this sort of whimsy for the world, who still enjoys whirligigs.
No, these things are terrible. And Stu.
Yes. Hi there. How's it going?
Yeah, same thing you're going to be doing me is like getting a leaf blower, trying to get rid of all the pollen. I mean, the whole weekend's kind of just been taken over by nature.
I'm doing that every day.
Yeah.
I got my blower.
Yeah.
And I'm blowing out my garage and blowing off the vehicles and blowing off the driveway like every day. I'm not kidding.
All right, so we actually have kind of a fun yet reflective, and will be, I think at times we're gonna have some serious conversation. We've had a little bit of fun on the front here, but we're going to enjoy our drinks before we begin. So I'm gonna start out. I'm getting pretty heavy today. I'm having a Diet Coke.
Love that.
I am in fact having a Diet Coke.
I love a Diet Coke.
I just feel like a Diet Coke right now.
It's a good one. It's nectar of the gods.
Yep. What do you got?
I have me a Bold Rock apple cider. May, what about yourself?
I am having some hazelnut tea mixed in with some honey my sister made.
Ooh.
You want me to send you over some fresh ground up whirligig after we're done?
I don't think whirligig makes good coffee. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong.
So, I just got back from Ravenfest this past weekend.
How did that go?
It went spectacular.
Good.
Thank you so much for Raven Forge Games for hosting us. We had 6 cubes that were in like a small little race to the top type of situation. It was really fun, really lighthearted. Great reception for all the cubes, excellent feedback. And they were trying to get 48. I think they got up to 51. We actually had, for the first time I can think of in our little subset, a little minor wait list. We've never had a wait list before.
What?
I know, a wait list, right? Instead of like...
Get out of town.
Oh, yeah. Instead of we didn't have to make up a wait list at this time with fake people. They actually showed up. It was nice.
That's incredible. I'm sad I missed it. My wife was working, so I was here with my kiddos, but... I'm glad that it went the way that it did, because this is obviously the second time that you've been there in recent-ish times.
Yep.
The last time there was a larger, if I remember, it was a modern.
Yeah, last time it was more.
RCQ.
So it's all for charity, and they host an entire weekend kind of thing. And I think they do like Blood Bowl, and they do some other like.
There was some crazy games going on.
Yeah,
over
they
there.
do. There's all kinds of games happening all over the place, but
because the place is huge.
It's a massive in the middle
Huge
of, I mean,
place.
Sanford, North Carolina is a gorgeous little town anyways, but this is a huge game store, and it's really, really nice. And in that, they host like a local charity event each year. I was speaking to one of the owners, Ryan, and he was telling me this is like their 7th time they've done it, but this is the first time that they actually put a actual cube event on the docket, which... The way this one went, we were talking about this is going to be a repeat thing. We're going to do this every year to help support the community of Sanford. And I think this time it went to like an animal shelter before it went to like a women's help group. It's just they're always finding something to help to the greater good, right? So I'm all about that here. And Uber Cube is always here to support charities.
Yep. Incredible.
One of the cubes that was featured, and I was excited for it to be featured, and initially was not on the docket, was the Femme cube. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, May? You know a lot about the Femme cube. You've helped actually craft this thing and get it to where it's at today. So I kind of want to talk about...
I've tried to give advice whenever I could. Granted, there's still a lot of cards that slip through the cracks that you add on occasion, but...
Yeah, I do. So that's why
We'll get to it.
Yeah, no, I get used to it. So we're going to talk about some of those cards. But what we're actually going to focus on is this cube is not only a passion project, a journey for me as a human being. I am learning. I am 48 years old. I can be stubborn. This has been the best thing that could have happened to me, where I get to see the game of Magic that we all love, yet through other people's eyes, because they share their experience with me and helps me to learn and grow with the community. And there's no other way to really sum that up. And it hasn't always been great. I mean, we've talked about that. I think you and I had a private conversation, May, where I said this cube has been quite the minefield for me to run through at times. I'm definitely doing a gambit here. Would you agree?
Yes. And I think the reactions that you've received and the feedback that you've received, I'll absolutely give you your props. You've taken it like a champ. At times, I can see how you've been made to feel a little uncomfortable, probably out of your comfort zone, to say the very least. And like you say, when you attempt a project like this and you expose yourself in a way that you have with this project, then yeah, sometimes you're going to get some feedback and you're going to get some commentary that does make you feel a little uncomfortable. But I think it shows the dedication that you have, and again, big props to continue with something like this and make it the best version that you can, and to put it out there for the world to see.
I would like for this cube not to be the only cube that's trying to do this. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make here. And I'm not saying go out and clone this cube. I'm saying I like the idea, May, of cube meaning more than just a game that we play sometimes. And there's a lot of different ways to take that on. We all know that, like through art forms and fixtures and whatever you choose. Even the fake cube is more than just... more than just the pictures and the fairies. It's a whole world. You've constructed an entire atmosphere for people to come into and to enjoy together. And that's what Cube is intended to celebrate. Any thoughts on that, May, before I proceed?
I agree with you. I think that especially with like a cube like this, where it's a big part of its identity is about like representing like a certain group of Magic. And I think that having more people being willing to explore that as a space for expression and creativity is, frankly, a little underutilized to this point. And I would love to see more. Like, especially with the fake cube, right? Where it's just like, yeah, the thematics and etc. I'm not the one who like started the idea of fake cube, etc. That was like Wizards of the Coast introducing a lot of these cards and ideas, etc. Like, this has kind of been like a back idea for them. But I don't think it's unrealistic to say that, like, the way that my fake cube has kind of centralized the fairy tale cube space, right, has spawned off a lot of other people to take inspiration from it in a way that was really good and transformative. And that's something that I'd really like to see for this cube as well.
Yeah, so the Femme cube, for those that aren't familiar, let's start with this as a base. I am a 48-year-old cis white male. I have been married for almost 25 years, and I'm former military. And then one day pops into my head, don't know where it came from, this idea to build a cube that celebrates women. It came out of nowhere. I don't know why I thought of it. I have no idea why I thought of it. I'm just driving and it just popped in my head, and it was something that I wanted to do. And it started out as something I tried to take on alone initially. And that's kind of where the journey kind of picks up, right? Because choices were made, card selection, even, I mean, we can talk about game mechanics all you want, but I'm talking about, like, as the cube got feedback and women looked at the cube and then gave their real world experiences and provided me insight that I simply cannot see through the lens no matter how hard I try. Because we're going to talk about a few more of these, right? It's like it's a never ending journey for me to keep learning. And what makes this cube so special to me is, if you can tell in my voice, I'm always uncomfortable talking about it. It's almost like, what did you talk about before? It's like imposter syndrome. I've made something, I'm trying to present an idea, and sometimes it almost feels like the idea is not coming from me. That's the best way I can describe this. And I want the message of this cube to mean, what is it? The Cube is Bigger Than You by Usman. Mm-hmm. This is about the biggest cube that's bigger than me that I could possibly ever think of. And I've taken on something really hard.
At least until now. You never know where the future might lead, but this is about, maybe this ends up as your magnum opus for Cube.
I would like to think so. If anything, it crafts me to be a better human. I mean, out of that, right? Because you have daughters. I have a son. This is a whole different experience for me, right? I've got a sister. But I'm learning a whole different way of seeing things. And we're going to talk about this. And some of it's going to be a little weird. Some of it's going to be heavy. And we're going to crack into that. But I want to talk about like a couple of experiences we had. So the first one was a couple of weeks back at SEG Con Richmond. And Emma Partlow was there, and I was excited for her to play the cube again, which she enjoyed. But another thing that happened that really warmed my heart is our good friend Aaron brought one of his children in, his young daughter, who also got to sit down and play the Femme cube. And she had a fantastic time. And if you want to have my heart, what is it, heart grow 6 times larger like the Grinch, watching this young kid actually see the vision that you were talking to me about and trying to, you told me a long time ago that women want to see themselves through the characters, right? That's
correct.
This young person playing the game was seeing themselves through, I don't know, Selesnya deck and telling me what angels they had. It couldn't have brought me more joy. And that's like the highlight of this project, to see that and get a group of people to do that. Recently got to experience that again this past weekend. This is a shout out to 2 of our drafters at Ravenfest. This was for both Reed and Amanda. They were 2 women that sat down and drafted this cube. In particular, they really came there to draft this cube so much that they wanted to draft this cube again. And the biggest compliment that I got from Reed is she said that I never play a cube after I lose. I move on. She goes, this is the first time I wanted to go back for more. I mean, I don't know what else. You'd have to have been in this conversation to experience it, but we talked for almost like an hour after the draft about their experience in this cube environment, and they flicked through some cards, and they were given live feedback, and it's indescribable the amount of stuff that I was learning. But before we move on and keep talking about this experience, because this one is a hard one for me. This was a very emotional. You have to understand that even when I'm trying to get it right, I'm not always going to get it right. we landed on a few more bombs because I'm running through that minefield, May. It's like a little Kate Bush, I'm always running up that hill because I feel like I can't get there. But any thoughts before I proceed, May?
I feel like that this is one of those struggles that's, I would say, necessary. Like, one of the biggest obstacles that you had when you started this idea was that a lot of people really dismissed, like, you're wanting to be involved with this project, because when typically we think of like men taking on this kind of, let's say, project, it's usually through the lens of like waifu base, or like, here's characters I think are attractive or whatever, and it's icky, it's gross. And it was a lot of that misunderstanding, but it took, like, you had a really good idea, and I feel like I still don't regret to this day, like, standing by it and giving my feedback whenever I could, because like it's one of those things that's important because of those experiences that you get to have with people, and you getting to learn and grow along the way is definitely a huge upside of that, right?
Yeah, I would add, you have known Anthony for a while now. I've known Anthony for a while now, and even though the Emma Partlows of the world and some of the other commentators and reviewers maybe of this cube may not have known you for long, I think the sincerity has always been kind of something that shone through pretty comfortably, right, when you've been demonstrating this cube. That kind of goes a long way. In fact, that may go the whole way, right, when it comes to people outside of your very, very close circle giving you feedback about it and understanding what your vision is. So that to me is incredibly important, and maybe the whole reason why you've had the kind of feedback that you have.
So one of the forced tenets of this cube is, yes, it's celebrating women, and yes, it's a game that I need people to be able to play. It's not a museum for people to walk through. That's a conversation that I had again this weekend. I could put cards in there that are representative, but it also needs to follow that rule set that it must be a playable game. That was a conversation I had with the women, both Reed and Amanda, this weekend, because they're picking out cards. So they understood that. Like, some cards are selected for their art plus their mechanical properties in order to make a game play. And that does shorten the pool even further, right? But one of the major things that I have forced, and if you peruse through the cube specifically on the art that I've chosen, not only have I chosen women, but now I am trying to be very representative as much as I can be, and have every basically culture, creed, race, age, anything that I can cover that represents the whole entire spectrum of women the best way that I can, because I did find this, and we had some very honest and raw conversations this weekend with both when I was speaking to Amanda and Reed. And I told them one of the biggest challenges in Magic is, even though I, air quotes, quarantined the idea to art with the depictions of women on it, I found a lot of them were white women. Like, that was a thing that kind of came out the gate, is a lot of the characters in Magic there was lacking in women of color. So I've been trying to diversify that as well, too, through intent. And then, as speaking to the women, too, I'm also trying to include women of different age groups through intent, right? Because they want to see themselves through that. So people like, what's the new card?
Like Jaya, my beloved.
Yeah, Jaya is a perfect example. Or what's the Rancor? The one, I think it's from Fallout, or it was from... Yeah, it's from Fallout with the older lady beating the holy heck out of a man.
Yeah.
Like, they really said, I love this art. I think in particular Reed complimented because she just thought that was funny, because I'm trying to be representative across all kinds of groups, right? That makes this project even harder. But as you flip through it, I think you'll find that I'm doing my best to try to diversify that.
While also, like you say, maintaining that high-quality game environment, which, let's be honest, regardless, you're still trying to build a cube. You're trying to build a representative cube. You're trying to build a cube that has a social representation, right?
Yep.
But you're still trying to build the cube. So that, to me, is another part of the magic of it, right? Because this is always such a fun cube, and everybody who plays it has such a great time with it.
But I got to be careful. And another one of the tenets, too, is if a card shows up that either offends or is misunderstood, I try to address that immediately.
Yes.
And that has happened multiple times now, right? Because, again, I'm flicking through cards, and we're going to talk about some examples of that. Where
one of mine was Hero Bladehold.
Yeah,
that was a particular stick.
Yeah. I did get caught up in that 1980s Red Sonja vibe, and it kind of just looked over it and said, "Well, this is a mechanical card, and while I'm following the tenet, but that's not the only one you caught me on. The other one you caught me on was, and I didn't see it. I almost feel stupid for not seeing it. Was Tangle Wire. I just like the card Tangle Wire, but I had the one in there that definitely was provocative, or it wasn't even provocative. It was like, hey, look at this, right? And I try to avoid that.
There are a lot of places I'd put a Tangle Wire. This is not one of them.
Yeah. And it just hadn't crossed my mind. And before we start talking about that, I'll give you some negative examples. So when I first built this cube, and I had originally tried to put it in, or I'd requested for it to be in CubeCon, for the first 2 times they denied it. For reasons is it couldn't be navigated. And we've told this story before. And then May, and then thanks to the Birds of Paradise, they helped me get this involved 2 times now at CubeCon. So that actually got to demonstrate what I'm trying to do here. But it was always told to me, and I had a hard time believing it, that this cube would be viewed in a negative light by some people. And I just couldn't see that world. Like, I'm focused on the idea of trying to make a cube that's very respectful and demonstrating the message. And no matter what I did, it seems like I always found one person that found a way to make it gross. And the first time it happened was at that first CubeCon. I decided, I think you might have been there. We sat down with someone, and it was not in the main event. We went to the free play, and it wasn't 30 seconds in that the person to the right of me just started getting weird. I mean, there was no way around it. Flicking through the cards, making it weird. Everything that everybody had kind of warned me that maybe could happen, the person to the right of me is immediately demonstrating it within 30 seconds. And I didn't even know how to do that. Like, so I remember, I didn't want to be confrontational, but I'm like, all right, so we're not doing this. And so that happened once, and I won't go into that story too much. Well, recently, again, May, I went over to a person. I'm trying to recruit people. I had Emma and Aaron's daughter, and Aaron sitting there and trying to get some people to come play the Femme. And I'm walking around the SEG hall. As we do, and we're just asking people, hey, do you want to come learn about Cube? And I said, I've got a cube that celebrates women. And I swear to God, it wasn't 15 seconds goes, oh, man, I want to play a Gunnar cube. And I'm like, guess what? Yeah. You are not playing a Gunnar cube. As a matter of fact, we are not speaking any longer. You have a great day, sir. But it was so funny because his 2 friends that were with him jumped down his throat so fast that I didn't even have to recognize that. I didn't even have to reconcile that. One guy's like, hey, he's a content creator. The other one's like, maybe you shouldn't be such a jerk. And I'm just like, all right, you guys have a great day. If you other 2 want to come over, you may. But I do not want this negative reflection to come inject itself over into that environment. So it is part of the minefield I am navigating. And And I'm not a woman, May, so I only get to see this from these little, anecdotal interactions.
I think it also just kind of shows how backwards
I will
we
give
are
you a
still.
bit of credit, because it's one of the things that, like, as a woman, I appreciate is whenever guys hold each other accountable for that type of thing. Because, like, there are going to be times in which you're going to have conversations and those types of things are going to come up, and people look to their peers for approval, right? And when that kind of thing comes up of, I'm going to talk about the Femme Cube, I want to play the Goomer Cube, shut it down immediately, right? And I'm really proud of you for that. You did a good job, because that's like a big part of maintaining the safety of that space. That's the big part of like maintaining the identity of this cube.
Well,
right?
thank you. I appreciate
yes, it's
that.
walking through the landmine to do that, but it is a necessary battle.
So I kind of want to talk about, we've talked a lot. We're going to go into kind of a little bit of story time. So we got to launch the cube here at Ravenfest again. And, I had our good friends, both Reed and Amanda, play this cube. And they're excited about it. They frequent the Ravenforge games all the time. As we told you before, they're excited to play this cube. And they knew one of the core tenets was it is open duck season, as, Looney Tunes used to do, on let me know if any card in here.
Duck season.
Yeah, no, wabbit season. Duck season. No, wabbit season. No, seriously, though. And it's funny we should say wabbit season, because that kind of plays right into what we're going to talk about next year. It's definitely wabbit season. So as I opened up and said, especially, I kind of went and talked to them individually before they began the game, and then there was another woman there as well, too. The name eludes me right now. But I said, in particular, you three, anything you see while playing this game, you come tell me immediately. I don't care if it's in the middle of gameplay or whatever. Anything that, write it down, give me your immediate feedback, whatever I can do to fix it, to make this experience meet this message. So the games began. And we have one, May. And we're not gonna go into graphics with this one. We're not gonna talk about this one. So we're gonna leave this to listener imagination, because one slipped through that I allowed.
I don't know when you added this card.
I never thought about it. It's okay. So we're gonna talk about. So Reed came to me and said, "Hey, Anthony, I want to talk to you about a card." And I'm like, "Oh God, what have I done now?" And in the minefield of the Femme Cube.
Can I just very quick? Okay, I want to say that I'm kind of going in blind here. So maybe we can utilize this as a bit of a test, as well,
because
I was not present. Okay, so this feedback again is completely new to me. Is it the card that we're looking at right now on the show notes?
Correct.
Is it due to, in no small part, something that has been highlighted in no small part by the leader of the current administration in our?
I'm not aware of that, but we're going to assume probably yes.
Do the words Jeffrey Epstein sort of go along with it in a way?
No, this one didn't tilt that way.
Okay.
This one tilted
No.
towards... This one's different. This one is particular. The name of the...
Significantly more mundane than that, but
Yeah.
definitely more of the eyebrow-raising question mark.
All right, audience, we're not going to attempt you anymore. This is not meant to be crude. This was brought to my attention. We can laugh all we want, and whenever I tell you this in a minute, I'm going to tell you that everyone heard it, laughed in the room too. And then they all kind of did the shame finger at me, and I'm like, I didn't know. I never think about it. So
I will also clarify
I'm pushing through
that
to talk
after
about this.
that happened, he called me and I did the same thing.
I didn't even... So
the card we're talking about is Rabbit Battery.
So we're going to leave it right there, Rabbit Battery. And in particular, and we're just not going to be gross, but the the art and the name, and I kept asking, because at first I was dumb to this.
It is a big, if you know, if you know.
You know if you know, and that's exactly what I was.
It's literally in the title.
Yeah, but...
It's in the title.
The headspace.
It's got to be like, at least keep me honest, right? Because the two things I think it's either very obvious in the art.
Okay, obviously Stu is lost too. We're not going to describe that on this show. I'm just going to tell you that this is. Anyways, the art's provocative if you allow your imagination to go there, and the name is provocative if you allow your imagination to go there, and if you take both,
itself is fine. It is the play on the kind of meta commentary part of it that's
so
that's
the women said that the context of this card being within this cube, this has got to go, and I was like, what?
Yeah, and I agree with them.
Yeah, but you want to hear how stupid I am?
I don't agree to this. It's got to go.
Do you want to hear how stupid I am as a man? So I remember Reed said this to me. She goes, the card Rabbit Battery's got to go, Anthony. I go, why? Because it's got haste? She goes, she kind of did the head tilt. And I'm like, why? And then she goes, she just kind of did the little eyebrow. And I'm like, and then other people that started doing the eyebrow, and we all started doing a collective eyebrow. And I went, oh. So
your brain cells connected.
So then they finished out their games. I cut this card immediately. But this is an example. And we just, this one was a funny little whoopsie on my part. And feel free to come to your own imagination. I am not going to describe this for you. This is a PG-13 show. But the idea was enough to send a conversation and get weird. And then putting this card in context of the Femme cube made it even weirder. I'm just like, okay, we're so done with that card. We're cutting it. I let it go. Just moving on. But that's how proactive I am, or reactive, whichever one you want to pick, to making that immediate change. Because this is not a card, because the art to me is, it's literally a bunny with flames coming out of it, and it's got a woman like firing it almost like a bionic arm and launching it at something. And it's in my artifact cube, and I've never even blinked twice at this card.
Oh, it's a great card. I love the card.
But okay, so we'll be serious
Sometimes
for a minute.
Context is the killer.
Well, the context is that I inadvertently, through the viewer's eyes, injected the idea of sexuality through, and we'll just leave it at that. That's what has happened here into a cube that I am trying my best to be kind of a net neutral, right? Like as much as I can from an art depiction to be serious in terms of sexuality. I'm trying to make sure that the shirt's buttoned up. I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not my position to be like representatives of body, female form and things like that, right? So I'm being really choice with my art. Not all of it is. I even asked in some cases when I'm having the win.
I'm going to take away your shovel. A big part of it is that you just didn't know any better. And
landmine.
We can all have a kind of good laugh about it.
Yep, landmine. Let's go to the next landmine. Because the women were really great, and the feedback was fun, and it was constructive, and kind of went through it. So now we went into another one. Here's another card.
And I'm just going to start off before we continue of saying this is not a card that I particularly loved for your environment. Not mechanically or anything, but like just the meta of it is just it's kind of rubs me the wrong way personally. But like, continue.
So the next card that was brought up, and so. For me, I don't know a lot of Magic lore, but I'm doing this from like two sides of the equation. I'm thinking about the mechanics of the cube, and I want some sort of reanimator, and it's been hard with the art restriction and all that. And I also want to show like heroines from Magic lore that, again, people can see their selves through and etc. Mm-hmm. And so I put in the card Victimize, and this is a trap too. And May's making a face because I just never thought about it. I see the card Zancha. And I think Zancha, and I know I've played a Zancha commander deck before, and I thought the card was badass, and I loved the deck, and thought Zancha was just like, really cool.
Can I ask, is that who is meant to be represented?
That's Zancha getting thrown to the ground. So let's talk about Victimize. Victimize is problematic for me putting this cube. Again, it's almost like I'm clopping down the street with horse blinders on sometimes. That's why I'm really, really open to say, hey, please look at this cube. And I'm actually going to go so far as to right now encouraging the audience, comb through this cube. If you see anything, you catch anything, DM me, whatever, email me. Don't go up on Twitter calling me out. I've got enough. I get enough flack with this cube. I'm not trying to fly through the battlefield all the time, getting air to air thrown at me all the time. But if you see something, let me know, because I am really, really wanting this cube to be more than me.
Can I ask? And I don't know if this is something that you either want to keep in or edit out or whatever. No. I'll ask this question: do you keep a log? If it was me, I would, but I'm not brave enough to do it. I would keep a log of cards that have been removed from the cube for reasons such as the ones that have been removed that we're talking about in this episode. And you don't even need to go into some great detail about why, just card removed, inappropriate.
Yeah, it's Victimize.
I am going to hijack this just for a quick second, because there is one thing that he does do that I do kind of appreciate. And it's specifically in reference to Hero of Bladehold, which I alluded to earlier, right? Where he keeps a Hero of Bladehold card just in the cube box. And it acts as a reminder of, Oh,
yeah, I forgot we talked about that. That was something I was going to say.
And that's something that I think that...
we talked about that in our private conversation. Thanks for flagging that for me, because that's important. So... Mm-hmm. I have, for the audience to know, and I'm surprised to this point, no one has noticed it, that in my spacers that I use for my lands, I put magic cards that are offensive in there that no one's caught, and it wasn't for them to ever catch. What I was telling May is I put them physically in the cube to remind me the opposite of what I'm trying to do with this cube. As stupid as that is, to ground me. And I don't have any cards right now that I'm going to reference, but they are scantily clad, not gross, but they're the, very Mad Max in the Thunderdome, probably 1980s, pushing the art, fantasy art.
They
but
can
I
also
have them, and there's a visual reminder to me, don't be an ass.
Well, and they can also serve as a, if someone comes up and says, hey, why don't you have this in the cube? You can pull it out and say, this is why. I'll, here, take this card and take as long as you need. But if you can figure out why, then good on you.
I've got them inside the little hard cases, two-sided on each one of them, and I use them as my land spacers, and nobody ever notices, right? They get kind of just pushed to the side because I put the lands out for people. But if anybody ever says, hey, I want to see what you're trying not to do in this cube, I'll go, this is what I'm trying not to do in this cube. And I don't have anything like super gross, but I've got ones that are like stark reminders of the opposite of what I want to portray, or I have learned that this is not okay.
So for the benefit of the viewers and those at home that do like to read our show notes, hopefully you guys are still plowing away with that. We've got 2 copies of Victimize in the show notes. One is from Urza Saga and one is from A Secret Lair. Talk us through those.
So Victimize, I'll tell you what the card does. Not that that matters, but we'll do it for the sake of doing it. Choose 2 creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature. If you do, put 2 chosen creature cards in the play tapped. And then the original Victimize is the priest casts Zancha to the ground. It's defective. We must scrap it. Going into the layers of that, when Amanda and Reed looked at this card, they looked at it from a lot of layers. Me, I saw it as, again, I think Zancha's kind of a badass, right? But I didn't see it through the lens of this snapshot in time of this image in context to this cube. And what you're seeing is an assault. We're not going to call anything more than that, or more or less than that. It's literally me putting an assault depiction in my cube and not thinking about it. And I had visually caught this about 2-3 weeks ago, and I had already looked at the other card, but I've been traveling a lot and a lot of excuses, but I've got the event coming up and all these things. I didn't have time to order the other card. And I'm so happy that the 2 women said, I want to talk about this card. I'm like, oh, nope, we don't need to talk about it. Got it. Already locked on. You don't have to explain that one to me like you did Rabbit Battery. I see it, and we're getting rid of it. And it's actually the new card's in the mail. May, what is this art from the other art? I picked something that I think is pretty badass. But
yeah, so you switched it to the Secret Lair art that I'm almost positive that it's Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. I mean, this is a different depiction in its entirety. This is a show of strength, show of power. Someone on the other end of this weapon's not doing great.
I think it's a spear, or is it a staff? Whatever.
It's pointy.
Yeah,
someone's going to die.
It hurts.
Something pointy. Point is she's pointing it down, right?
Yep. Yeah,
she's acting as the oppressor in this art, but there is no oppressed in the art.
Yeah,
right.
You're right. It doesn't show. Matter of fact, you can't even tell if she's just kind of looks like she's just kind of propping up against the weapon ultimately, because you can see her needs are folded back. It's like she's resting at that point.
The important part is that it's just a depiction of Shadowheart. It also like the main issue with the old imagery of Victimized was just that a lot of that imagery was just very inappropriate for what you're trying to do.
Let me read the 2 different flavor text again, and you'll see the difference now, aside from the art. So we'll go back to the first one that I had, and it's the priest casts Zancha to the ground. It's defective. We must scrap it. Okay? I'll do that as flat as possible. The new one says, the unworthy fall, the useful rise. It's 2 different messages happening right there. So
right.
Yeah, so all these are different portions of me evaluating this card, and I do believe that this new representation is much stronger. Agreed?
It's better. I'm still going to be on the side of it ekes me out a bit, just like contextually, but like that's more of a personal thing.
Yeah, I'll put it on the...
If more women end up talking about it in the future with you, I'm sure that's something that you will reflect on.
I'll put it on the list.
But like, I will agree that having just Shadowheart here is leagues better than the original.
All right, we got this next one, and I'm going to tread very lightly now. Okay, anything that causes a conversation that I don't I'm just gonna say sometimes I got a life like everybody else, and I just don't want I don't want to be that B-52 flying this guy taking flack all the time either. So sometimes I'm just going to make concessions, and a recent concession came, and I want to talk about this one, and I'm going to navigate the best I can through this conversation. So audience, please forgive me as I travel this lane here. So recently, again at SCG Con Richmond, Emma Partlow played the Femme Cube, and she had a wonderful time. And she had made a suggestion for a card. And the card she suggested was Guide of Souls, which is a card that I haven't even actually put in my vintage cube yet, but people seem to know this card quite well.
It's crazy good.
And
very good card.
What is that? What master set is that? I'm not certain which one that is.
That's from Modern Horizons 3,
Modern
the one
Horizons
on the
3.
right-hand side.
Yeah. And this card's pretty nuts. And it's very Kaldheim in its art depiction of this woman. Now, it's not my job to tell you how the internet approached this art, but it came from a lot of different directions. And every time I was even almost respectfully debating with Emma as she's presenting this card to me, because I have like these empirical steps that I try my best to run through to allow a card to go into the environment, if you will, right? Like I'm trying to do. There's a lot of checks, and I'm not going to discuss all the checks openly. There's things that I have to do to make sure that I get a card in here that, meets the requirements of the expectation of the cube, because the cube is now way bigger than me, right? So one of the things that came up with this card, and this is not from our conversation at SCGCon, it's the original art depiction of it, created some Reddit-type conversations that I'm just not going to have, right? The art was confusing to people. They didn't know they were gendering. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to filter it. People on the internet were gendering this card different directions. And the ultimate stake that I saw somebody lean in towards the gender of the card, because this was literally like Reddit posts going back and forth on this card. I'm not going to say all the names, but it's part of the Soul Sister package is where it went. Okay. And people were finding other names to call it. Not my place, not my story, not my battle. But I was seeing people navigate that. Well, Emma told me part of the resolution of the story was the German art, or the German version of this card, used a female naming convention in German, which aligns with, I guess, categorically with how they do their names. Okay. And that was, again, this is just me as a reader, finally got people to land on this conversation. I remember when we grabbed this card from Emma, I'm looking at it and I'm tilting it, and I just want to know. Like, I can't, because the art is in a weird pose, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So Emma says assuredly and confidently, this passes the criteria. But I still feel like maybe I'm taking some risk. Emma has stamped this thing for me. I mean, she stamped it for me, but I still feel...
I'm going to push back. I don't think there's risk here.
Oh, I didn't know. That's the point.
When I was looking at the show notes, I was kind of curious about the direction that you were going to go between these two cards. But ultimately, I don't think that there's a risk for it. I think that this is generally just a good depiction. Yes, a lot of things that people would consider traditionally feminine or whatever is a little bit harder to identify on this card. But that's also not really the point of your cube. The point of the cube is not just, yes, here are the most feminine whatever. It is, here's women in magic, right?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but let me cut you off for a second for this purpose. I told you I already deal with, and I can't filter out all the humans that sometimes play my cube. I just can't. And sometimes I do get that person to the right of me, I told you, that first cube con, that makes things uncomfortable for me being the designer of this cube. I can't, and I try to excuse them as promptly as I can. But every time I see and so I asked the women, I asked Amanda and Reed, I said, let's talk about this card. I'm going to be quiet, give your feedback to me, and tell me what you think. And they did like the art. What they didn't like about the art is they somehow or another didn't like, it was less about the depiction, it's more about the pose. They didn't like the upward camera version of the art. It's something about it, and they just kind of and they, as I discussed with them, because our young friend Carl from the store ran over and grabbed this other Guide of Souls, which is some kind of promo art. and said, I got this one for you. And I'm like, so here's my solution, May. I'm going to just go ahead and get to the point here. So my solution is I went ahead and took this other Guide of Souls, which is, I believe, a woman of color. It's more angel form, less of a debating topic for me. We'll create less... sometimes I want to have conversations about this cube is the best way I can say it. And sometimes I don't want to have conversations about this cube. It would be different if you're or another woman's having a dialogue about this cube. But sometimes if I put something in here, it's going to put me into a situation where I have to... When I just want to play games, sometimes I don't want to have to defend the game all the time. Is that fair, Stu, what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Because sometimes you want to be able to say, you know what, I understand that there might be a pushback or there might be a criticism or there might be a reason why someone's uncomfortable. And that's not to delegitimize someone's feelings about something, right? You never want to do that. But you also want to say, well, this is maybe a conversation that I want to have another day. Because I want to get on with it.
So the Guide of Souls that was given to by Emma is special because Emma gave it to me. So here's what I'm going to do as a solution. I'm going to rotate these 2 different cards in between games. I've already decided I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to make this...
That's a good way to get your sample size of how people feel about it.
This is not my decision to make. I will present them both, and I will allow people to pick them both. And
I'm going to hit the take that I think they're both good.
I think they're both good, but I felt like the first one... And it's, again, not my place. Anyway,
let's say the first one, clarify, you're talking about the Modern Horizons 3 one, the original
Go
version.
onto Reddit and look up Guide of Souls and just ask questions for yourself that I'm not going to answer for you right now. But I'm telling you, the internet is a wild and hairy place, and it's not my navigation to do. But I'm telling you, it made enough that whenever it was presented it to me, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. It was a gift was being presented to me, and I'm like, do I want that? You know what I mean? Like... Again, everybody put yourself in my shoes for a minute. I'm the one that every other turn in this cube, I'm like, why is this card in here? I'm like, I don't know. And now, but so anyways, my point is I'm just going to rock with both of them. I'm going to call it a day. They're going to take turns. I think they're both great. They're both powerful art depictions from different perspectives, and I'm just going to leave it there. Is that fair, May? That's the best I can offer because, yeah.
I don't think that's unreasonable. Like you say, I think if you found a good enough reason to include it, and I think if there is nothing, obviously the art is going to be the primary when it comes to a reason to not include it, and there isn't an obvious reason not to in this card, then I think it's a pretty easy sort of justification. Or like I say, at least say, I think this is a good enough reason, at least for now, for me to say I'm not unhappy with it being in the cube, but it's something we can maybe talk about another time.
The problem is, and it's not the problem, it's the problem of the internal turmoil that I was having as a person. The first Guide of Souls, the original printing to me, shows a very powerful woman. That's full stop. I mean, powerful woman. The conflict comes with sometimes I have someone sitting with me, and because I do take this to events, that I am not equipped all the time while enjoying my game to want to stop in the middle of the game and have to debate with someone about. And I really don't want it to be a debate. Most time they understand. I go, nope, confirmed. I validated, checked. But sometimes people want to be weird. And I just decided the best offer I can offer for anybody listening to this, and please look at the 2 pieces of art, and I'm just going to go back and forth between both of them because they're just different. That's it. Moving on.
And sometimes, you know what you just say? You say, appreciate the feedback.
I try.
We'll talk about this another time.
Yep. So, May, I want to revisit a previous conversation that we had. And if you recall back when we had Emma on, and we talked about some of the cards, and because this came up again too. And this is not through ill intent. This is because I'm walking on this journey with building this cube. People approached me over the weekend, and they wanted to make card choices. And in this case, it was a man that walked up to me and made a suggestion. And I remember having this same conversation, and I had to have it. And so, as you know, I have Luris the Dream Den in the cube, and I have went through special, like, to a large extent to validate that Luris belongs in the cube, including like the lore, the text. People can see themselves through it. And my original defense of the Hearth was, she has a cub. That was my first. And now I'm going to redact that statement. Just like, you remember the Gilded Goose conversation that made me squirm? We're going to do the same one here. So I didn't feel so alone when I was approached by an individual over the weekend that says, hey, why don't you put the card Oscillate Pride in your cube? And I was thinking, well, I'm definitely not putting that there because that'll break this cube in half. But the immediate response is it's got a cat defending a pack. And then I remembered our previous conversation. And I said, well, it's not my place to gender anything. Is that the words I'm looking for? This is.
Yep.
I am. It is not. I learned. I listened. But I felt for that person when that person said the same thing that I had said that so many months ago, right? And so I stopped and I explained. I go, well, I understand what you're saying. Besides the fact that Oscillate Pride would crack this cube, I understand what you mean from the art, and I have the art on here. But I'm like, we can't make assumptions in life. It's not my place to make assumptions. This cube is bigger than that. This cube is bigger than me. It is not my job. I want to find art depictions that go through this massive validity process and then ends with people like May and Emma and Amanda and Reed and all these people validating that I got it right? That's the best I can offer here. And they understood. And I think it was an opportunity for what I felt was an honest exchange to try to explain that I can't just put any old card in this cube and say YOLO. I just can't.
Well,
the minefield is there.
First of all, you talked about this already. It's a cube still, right? It has to be playable. And if you think that a card is just going to be fundamentally unsuitable for the cube, even just from something as easy to explain out as power level, that can be the end of the conversation right there. So going along with, sometimes you just don't want to get into the deep and dark and, the depths of it. Sometimes that's just the easy way to end it.
That person wrapped that conversation in there. Well,
sure.
It has the kittens behind it.
It does.
It does.
But that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
And then I said, you don't even know if that cat on that rock knows those kittens.
You don't know anything.
Might be there to eat them.
You're absolutely right.
We're moving on.
But again, like I say, I think that's an easy way to kind of have or to end that.
That's what I did. I wouldn't have done that before.
I would have just said, look, I'm not putting in this cube for no other reason than power level.
There's an conversation that I can have regarding it, but it's a conversation we've already had with Emma, and a lot of my opinions still stand, and I'm glad that you're standing up for yourself and standing up for the values of this cube.
Oh, well, thank you. Let's move on to the next one, because you and I had a conversation, and I'm going to hand this one off to you. I'm going to start with this is one that we talked about before, but you and our private conversation shared some insight with me even further that I hadn't thought about. So I'm just going to start it out, and I actually have in the show notes that I'm going to remove, but I did just pull up my little argument statements, but there's no reason for me to be there just so I wouldn't lose my train of thought, but I'll cut them out. But we talked about Galta, the dinosaur, and I wanted it in there. And when I first talked to you in May, I talked about the Romantic languages and Slavic languages, and I did the defense of the letter A and versus the letter O. I have moved on past that because I did my own research post our conversation, and I realized that is not a qualifier that I can use in life. Okay, it's just not. It's just not. It was an initial way, but the more I looked, other languages use them differently to begin with. So we're moving on past that. But initially, when I looked at Galta, I did look at the letter A. That's how I started this probably 2 years ago, I started that conversation. And then one of my other things is whether or not this card qualified or not. And I talked to you about on the phone is the fact that it was a dinosaur, but yet it had like a flume of feathers on it, and the feathers were colorful. And you and I had a conversation about paleontological records versus, ornithology or whatever, were birds and the depiction of vibrant colors in nature and yada, 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 yada. And now I'm just going to shut up and I'm going to hand this to you.
I think the important part is that this was also a card that got mentioned when you were drafting with those other women, right?
That is correct. We talked about it and what their take on it, and they didn't have a problem with it, but I wanted to talk.
So why don't we start there?
Yeah. So I presented Galta to them, and I just opened it up to their feelings. And I kind of used some of my previous logic, talk with them, because this was like a really honest, as they're flicking through my cards, we're having the best conversation you could imagine, right? And they're just giving me all kinds of insight as they're going through my cards. And we're talking about Galta, and I said, well, I didn't know originally when I added this card based on, the art depiction of it and the vibrant colors and whether or not these are qualifiers in nature and whether or not the letter A could get me there and all these things, right? And I know lore eventually got me there, but it was a real question on whether or not the art depiction aligned with what I had learned as a little Anthony, right? Like all the colors and all the things. And again, not my conversation to have. But I started talking to you about peacocks. You and I had this great conversation, and then you stopped me. And this is the part where I'm going to be quiet because you had some insight that just floored me. And I'm going to be quiet and let you have it.
Yeah. So one of the things that, and this is an incredibly niche part of, the trans community, and not saying that Galta is trans, but what I am saying is that what ends up coming up a lot is that there are depictions of characters that, for example, there is a character in Animal Crossing who's a peacock, right? She's very much female. She's very much like just a villager character. And part of that is that like you engage with her as her, right? Like lore wise and mechanically wise, it's not up for debate. However, the part that like trans women are able to identify with is the fact that even though she's like a peacock, right? She has a lot of those male feather patterns, etc. And there's a lot of trans women who really identify that. Like, for example, it comes up sometimes where it's just like we might represent ourselves with like deer with antlers, for an example, right? Or peacocks would be another one, or birds or etc. with coloration, right? And again, Galta is not, I do not believe for a moment that this was like an intentional thing on Wizards of the Coast part or whatever. And a big part of Galta's color is more just to help Galta like stand out from the other dinosaurs, like in terms of like a design standpoint. But the reason that a lot of trans people are able to identify with that better is because there's just occasional male traits that we're stuck with, right? And it's a way that we can identify with that and still feel, like we are still feeling represented, right? And when you're being reductive to just the colors, right, where it's just like, Galta it has these colorations, therefore Galta's male, it kind of substeps all the other lore and whatever that's behind Galta, because it no longer becomes Galta as a character, but Galta as an image. And that's where I feel that this is kind of where the disconnect can happen, where it's, yes, the original intention for Galta, I'm going to reiterate, probably was just to add coloration to make her stand out from the other dinosaurs, right?
Yep.
But that kind of subtext that trans people can identify with is important too.
And if Anthony, if you asked, right, just let's say you have a conversation with Anthony, right? You don't know him. You just show up, you play this cube, and you said, why is this in there? Just out of interest. I want to know why you've got Galta in that cube. And he says that, pretty much. Do you think that would be... How do you think other trans women would feel about that? Do you think they'd say, you know what, that's good? Do you think that they'd share
Galta's
that kind
sheet. No questions asked.
No doubt.
No additional context needed.
No doubt.
Right? Lore-wise, Galta is sheet.
Or it doesn't even have to be Galta. It could just be... a card that's similar, as an example.
Right. And if the color things come up, that's when that additional context comes in, where it's just like, coloration is not the full story, right?
I normally try to tie those off with, I have had other people fact check and validate this for me. I'm not going to go into, again, I'm there to play a game. I'm hosting a game. It's supposed to be a community. It's supposed to be jovial. I do want conversations to happen from this cube. What I enjoyed most about Ravenfest was, even after the gameplay was done, like I said, Amanda and Reed sat with me and they went through the cards. I said, just put the cards in your hand and just shuffle through them and look at them. And any of them that make you feel a certain way, please let me know. Well, one of them they had, and I didn't put this in the show notes, but Amanda says, she pulled out the card Duress, the one with the needles pointing towards her face. And we were having fun at this point. The conversation is very comfortable. I go, well, Amanda, not all the women in this cube are going to live after every game. I made the joke. I said, some of them,
Some of you may die.
Some of you may die. It is a battlefield. And she laughed and she understood that. And I said, well, okay, well, I understand, but let's look at some of the other arts. So they pulled up Scryfall. And ultimately they ended with, they really didn't like any other art better than the one I have presently in there, right? Because we flicked through the different art for duress or whatever, and none of them really fit. I said, is it the fact that you don't like being duressed in the game? Maybe it's just you don't like being duressed.
I'm going to interject a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I really liked Arcane. Maybe it's because I have a history with League.
I want that one.
The secret layer for duress.
Yes.
Really good.
I suggested
really
that
like
one.
Art.
So
it's so good.
So I will tell you this, that you haven't seen my cube. So on my cube now, I have a sticker of Jinx. Jinx is an amazing character.
Hell yeah.
Jinx is now on the top of the cube, stuck on there forever. I'm going to cover it in Arcane Jinx. And I love the Jinx depiction, but when I presented that to Amanda and Reed, they weren't familiar with that. And they actually said they didn't like that.
Makes sense.
They didn't like that art. And I said, well, which art do you like? And they really didn't like any of the art. And I was trying to distill down, do you just not like being duressed? And they're like, I think they just kind of said, no, not really. Nobody wants to be duressed. Maybe you just don't want to be duressed. I get it. So it doesn't matter what art I pick. The card always invokes the same feeling. I got duressed. So
yeah.
But I get it.
I mean, after a certain point, the flavor fills the function, right?
Yeah. Duress is not great. So,
you are, in fact, the duress.
But I want to be clear to the audience how much I opened it up to that conversation. And I was really hoping, truthfully, I was hoping they'd lean into the Jinx. And I am going to, now I'm ordering that Jinx art. Because I now have, like I said, the sticker of Jinx.
So much.
That Jinx art is sick.
I don't love a lot of that particular secret layer, but that particular art I love a lot.
Yep. All right. I'll be changing it to that, and then I'll just have to have a conversation about who's this character later, because most people don't. That's what happens with the other IPs. Maybe that. Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, hang on a second.
Let's go tangential.
Let's not go too far. Right. Okay. So
I think it is important that we're keeping it to like women in magic.
Yeah. You see that
because
that's
it's
a pretty
Arcane
good
Jinx.
argument for not including it.
It is Arcane.
It's
This
not
is entirely
Arcane Jinx.
just my personal thing.
It's League of Legends.
It's
Jinx.
League of Legends
okay,
Jinx.
yeah, whatever.
And League of Legends Jinx has been around for like 15 years. I remember when Jinx was released. I used to be a degenerate League of Legends player. So, but if you're trying to keep it within...
I used to play so much Jinx.
Yeah. I was a DGen back in the day as well. But if you're trying to keep it within Magic, then that's an important distinction, I suppose, whether or not... how much of a core element of the cube is that?
I'm not going to keep it strictly to... I'm going to be limited, but some universes beyond will be so transcendent that I have to put it in. Like, maybe it's an IP that some of the people play the cube will bond with. Back to the argument that you made that people... Like, I
would embrace the crap out of it.
If it was 95% Magic and 95% of the women playing the cube could see themselves through the lens and characters of those characters, but I also had 5-10%.
If you want my serious recommendation, I think the Strixhaven one, the Mystical Archive version, I think that one's really good.
Is that the one? Is that the one with the hole above the head?
Yep.
Well, I want to be really clear. They both said they found that art not great.
Really?
Yeah. And so, see, this is the
Just
thing I navigate.
The kind of imagery is evocative, I suppose.
I didn't ask. And again, at this point, I'm tired. We've already done an event, and I'm like, all right, well, we have to wrap this up. But they were so kind in going through the cards and showing the ones, like, they were setting aside the cards that they really liked. That was like the thing for me. And then they rarely came across one they didn't. I think after we got past the conversation of Rabbit Battery, Victimize, Guide of Souls didn't come up. I invoked that conversation because I'd had it with other people. The Ocelot Pride versus Luris conversation, I invoked that conversation. Galta, I invoked that conversation. But they love...
I think Duress is just going to be one of those cards where nobody's going to be really happy about which Duress it is.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. But I do think the Jinx art is kind of my flavor win. Another thing that I did too, and I can't think of the card right now, I cut the Rabbit Battery, as I said. I went home immediately that night and got rid of it. And I think it's something Scoundrel. It's one of the like wicked cards. Some Charming Scoundrel, I think the card is. Well, I had one in my binder and I put it in there, but I got to looking, and this is how intentful I am in this, or how intentional I am in this cube. I put the one I had in there from like the original set, but I did find like a game day version that is a woman of color that I decided I ordered that. That's coming in the mail because, again, I'm trying to do... as much as I can
And
as a
to
human
be
being.
clear, I love Charming Scoundrel. So
Yeah, but
I am not going to
look up the game day. Look up the game day version. I'm adding that one
I
in.
have it in front of me.
Yeah, I'm adding that one in so that there's more representation across this cube for more people that sit in front of this cube to play it. I want this to be an experience, and I want this to be a positive experience. I want this to be a learning journey for me. Again, I don't want to constantly, forever, in the state of this cube, be that B-52 flying through the sky, taking flak. If anybody that's familiar with history, but it's not a great place to be. I want to eventually land.
It's not, and it's going to happen from time to time.
Yeah,
but
it's getting better, though.
it should.
I think it's getting better. I'm sure if the audience, and I encourage you, peruse through this. No, there are my feelings attached to these conversations, but if you want to look through this cube, I have shared it in the show notes, and it will be linked. I highly encourage you to go through and look at the cube. And if anything, you want to present a challenge or start a conversation with me, I'm open to it. But just know, again, my feelings are the other side of the line sometimes too, and I'll do my best. But we have covered about as much as I can. It is if anybody can listen to me, they can tell this is a hard topic to take on. I am always way outside of my comfort zone, trying to become more comfortable being in the space that I'm in. That's what this cube is.
Yeah, it's an important conversation that needs to be had. We still, as a society, need to do a lot better.
I'm going to tie off of this, and this is the biggest honor that I got. But as we end this, both Reed and Amanda said they're going to clone this cube, and then they host a women's night group where they play games, and they're going to copy this cube and play it with other women in their local area, which is amazing. And they're going to try to get it down to my art choices and everything. They also, interestingly enough, it was a fun conversation we had. They also said, because of where they lie in the conversation, said they can actually do some things that I can't do. I just can't do. They can make some choices that I'm just not going to make. And I found that fun. What they say, they said they were going to invoke their women's power and do a few things. And I said, you rock on. But I am not.
That is the inspiration that you were hoping to give.
That's what I wanted. I wanted that. So it was so exciting to tie this episode off. I couldn't have got more of an honor. I want to say thank you to our good friend Aaron. He's a listener, for bringing your kid out and playing this cube. It was a highlight. It's a thing I want to see. I want to say thank you to Amanda and Reed for playing this cube and getting feedback. I want to say thank you to Emma Partlow for playing this cube and just giving your absolute insight to me and helping me learn to be a better human. And May, number one, thank you so much. And Birds of Paradise, can't exclude them. But everybody that has supported me on this minefield that I keep running through. I'm running up that hill.
Someone's got to do it.
It
might as well be you.
And then I hope the audience enjoyed it. And we're going to go to the socials.
Let's do some socials. Let's start. Patreons. Much love and thanks to all of you guys. To David Wilsey, to Jeff Stumpo, to Chris Fitzgerald, Timber Dragon, Brian Christensen, Keaton Schultz, Lord Justice, Preston, Sam McKenna.
And I want to go ahead and put a pause here and say, if you're enjoying our show, we would love it. And if you're a Spotify listener, we could use your help. We're sitting right now at Spotify matters. The score doesn't matter, but it matters to getting reach and having people listen to the show. So if you're willing to give us a 5-star review, it really means a lot, like a lot.
We used to talk about that back in the early days.
We
need to bring it back.
Call to action, because we have kind of, sometimes we step on some toes. We're not perfect. I'm definitely not perfect, as you can tell. And sometimes we're trying to do our best, the best way we can.
Only May's perfect.
Only May is perfect. Only May is perfect.
I'll take that.
And nobody likes whirly gigs except for May.
Yeah.
Sorry you're dealing with
that right there is the proof of I'm not perfect.
Spotify listeners, though, please help us out. We could use a 5-star review to help us get those numbers up a little bit, please, because, yeah.
Let's get some numbers up on the facebook.com/groups/MTGcube drafting page.
It is growing every week.
I see
insanely.
a lot of posts.
Conversations are getting
You know
nuts.
what I'm seeing a lot more of recently as well is people just hey, I built my first cube.
Yep.
A lot of that going on recently,
Yep.
which is a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah,
So,
anybody, it's Facebook MTG drafting page something or another, but I'm one of the admin, and it is a fun site.
It is.
It is clean. We keep it clean. No promotions. Just your usual pack one, pick ones. Here's my new cube. What content should I listen to? Type stuff. And then we're gonna go ahead and talk about our socials.
all right,
some more.
as always, find us on Bluesky, ubercubemtgpodcast.bsky.social, or at Twitter at ubercubemtgpod. If you've got a longer question or comment, or you just want to reach out to us via email, ubercubemtgpodcast@gmail.com. Again, a big thanks to all of our Patreons at patreon.com/ubercube. We don't really talk about the YouTube too much at ubercubemtgpodcast747. We've talked for about the past 400 years about trying to get maybe some more YouTube content out there.
But we're tired.
It's busy. It's
A
busy.
lot, it's a lot doing. I travel a lot.
It's busy.
I'm trying, but I'm doing my best.
I'm not trying. I'm not trying hard enough, but maybe one day. And as always, come hang out on the Discord.
And then check out Kate Bush running up that hill, and you'll know how I feel right now.
You know what? I just got that delivered. My dad thinks he's taking it with him when he buys his house, but that record player in those vinyls,
amazing.
they're staying with me.
And then other than that, we're going to say the thing that we always say here at UberCube is Happy Cubing.